Hello again, Year 3. So I hope you are ready for the next instalment of Harry the Poisonous Centipede. Hopefully you can enjoy this either on Friday afternoon or on over the weekend. We're going to read a few more chapters today, but we're not going to read the whole thing. That would take us a while, but we are going to read a few more chapters. So let's share the screen and we'll get started. So we're going to start with chapter 18, the run for safety. But before we do that, let's just remind ourselves what happened before. So George had gone to the no-top world and there was a human that had picked up a stick. Do you remember? And it was Belinda to the rescue, because just as the human was trying to stamp on George, that brave mother centipede, Belinda, had run up the human's trouser and given its leg a mighty bite. Chapter 18, the run for safety. The moment she'd done it, she ran down the leg again to the ground. She had to keep running because the human was jumping up and down and its great feet might have landed on her and squashed her flat. As soon as she was clear of the jumping, she turned and looked for George. He was right beside her. He'd seen her dash away from the howling human and had followed her. "Grund, come with me, quickly," Belinda signalled. He didn't need to be told. As fast as she ran. I told you centipedes can run very, very fast. Well, even I didn't know they could run as fast as George and Belinda ran then. They reached the hole where Harry was hiding and fell into it on top of him. The three of them rolled down the slope all tangled up together and lay at the bottom. They looked like a shiny, lumpy black ball with about 1 million legs sticking out in all directions. I'm exaggerating, but 3 times 42 is quite a lot of legs, and 2/3 of them were awfully tired from running. Harry was the first to uncurl himself and become a separate centipede again. "Mama, why did it start going up and down like that and making that funny noise?" "I bit it," said Belinda shortly. Both the centis stiffened their front feelers in astonishment. Then, as if they were only one centi, they rushed up the tunnel again and poked their heads out. The human was nearer the ground now. All hunched over, bent over its leg and making another kind of noise like ooh, ah. They ran back to Belinda. "You couldn't have bitten it. It's still moving." "Well, that's partly why they're so dangerous. Biting them doesn't kill them. It doesn't even paralyze them. They're too big." "So why is it making that noise? Why did it stop trying to kill me?" "I think because it hurts," said Belinda. "Maybe if all 3 of us bit it." "No, Grund," said Belinda. "No, we will go back to our nest." Neither George nor Harry felt like arguing. Back in the nest tunnel, both the centis felt very tired and wanted to go straight to sleep, but Belinda had something to say first. "I don't know if you've learnt a lesson, Grund," she said grimly. "Yes," said George quickly. "I doubt it. I don't think anything can teach you not to get into trouble. But I have to try. Bend over." That's what she would have said if she'd been your mother, perhaps. Centipedes can't bend over. What she actually said was more like bottom up. Anyway, George knew only too well what she meant. George gets a spanking. George, trembling with alarm, turned round and stuck his rear segment into the air. Belinda stood beside it. She raised her first foot on that side. She brought it down hard on George's back end. The next little while wasn't much fun for George, because that was only the beginning. Belinda walked past his raised rear segment and spanked him once with each foot. And as if that wasn't enough, she then turned round and walked past him the other way, spanking him once with each foot on the other side. So that was 21 spanks on one side and 21 more on the other. 42 spanks altogether. It seems a lot, but that was a normal punishment for a disobedient centi. Mind you, it doesn't really hurt half as much to be spanked if you've got a thick cuticle on your bottom, so it wasn't as bad as all that. When it was over, George, lowered his tingling rear segment to the ground and rubbed some of his nearest legs over it. If centis could sniffle, George would have sniffled. Now, Sentes, go to your leaves, said Belinda sternly. There were no kisses for either of them. George crept away under his leaf. He felt very, very. I can almost hear you saying it. Sorry he'd been so bad? Sorry he'd put Belinda into danger? I'm afraid not. What he was sorry about was that he'd had a spanking from Belinda. He forgot she'd saved him. He just thought how his bottom hurt and how she wasn't even his real mother, which was pretty ungrateful of him. But if you'd just had 42 spanks, you might not feel grateful either, even if your life had just been saved. And in case you're wondering if Belinda had managed to teach George not to get into trouble, don't even think it. She hadn't. Because I'm afraid George, and here comes a wonderfully used word for people like him who won't learn to be sensible, George was incorrigible. Chapter 20. Smoke. A few days later, when Harry was just about ready for sleep, his mother started chewing up his bedding and spitting the bits on the floor. Mama, what are you doing? I've got a nice new leaf for you, she said with her mouth full. I'll just use this old one for floor lining. Come and give me a mouth. So Harry helped, and soon his old bed leaf was well crunched and spat out and spread smoothly over the floor of their nest. The spitty part dried, and Belinda rubbed her head over it until it had a sort of shine and it looked very nice, the way new floor tiles or a carpet would do to us. Good, Scenty. Now come and choose a new leaf to sleep under. There were plenty of leaves to choose from. Belinda had worked hard, dragging them down the tunnel. They were all shapes and sizes and quite soft, juicy and colourful, not crackly and dull like his old one. How come there are so many? This is the season when some of the trees drop their leaves, she explained. Harry chose a pretty yellow one, which was just the right size for him, and curled up under it and went to sleep. In the middle of the day, he was suddenly, and not at all pleasantly, woken by George landing on top of him and bashing him in the head with his own head. Get up, something terrible's happening, George crackled. Belinda shot out from under her new leaf, and so did Harry. They didn't have to ask what the terrible thing was. They could immediately smell it and sense it, and even see it, despite the darkness. Even Belinda, who'd lived the longest and seen all the seasons round, had never seen this before. It was all around them, in their breathing holes, in their eyes, tickling their feelers. They were dreadfully frightened. Yes, Belinda too. It was so strange, so uncomfortable, so, George hadn't exaggerated, so terrible. It was smoke, but they didn't know that. They had no word for it, and no word for mist or fog or cloud, nothing to compare it with. Things are so much more frightening when you don't have words for them. They just knew it was something to run away from. They left their cosy nest and ran. Chapter 21. Escape. They ran blindly without thinking. Lots of others were running too. Other centipedes and hundreds of other underground creatures, ants and beetles and bugs and bigger things too. Things the Senties would normally hunt or be hunted by. Now none of them were thinking about eating each other. They were just fleeing from the smoke that was drifting down the tunnels from the surface. It was coming from a bonfire that a Hooman had lit to burn the leaves. But what do centipedes know about bonfires? They only knew they were choking and terrified. They ran. Their many swift legs carried them fast and far along the tunnels. They kept together. They ran instinctively along down-sloping tunnels because these were freer from smoke. That was how they found themselves in the water cave under the up pipe. There they stopped. They were too tired to run anymore. The smoke in their breathing holes made them weak, but down here there wasn't any smoke, at least not yet. Maybe we'll be safe here, said Belinda. Safe? Safe? Under the up pipe? Oh, Mama, we're not safe here, said Harry. The Hoomins send water down the up pipe to get us. Last time we were here, we nearly... Belinda turned round slowly and looked at Harry. The last time you were here, she said. The last time you were here? How many times have you been here since I told you never, never, never to come here? 2 times, said Harry at last, hanging his little round head. Belinda sank to the ground. You might as well have left when my other senties did, she said sadly. You don't love me. You don't listen to me. You don't care what I say. I might as well not be your mother. Harry threw himself on top of her. Oh, Mama, that's not true. Of course I love you. Of course I care. It was just... But he couldn't think what it was just. He couldn't remember now why he had disobeyed his mother. George said bravely, It was my fault. I talked him into it. But Belinda hardly heard him. She just kept lying there, shaking her head sorrowfully and saying, You came to this worst place in the world. You didn't believe me. I was trying to keep you safe. Harry kept touching her gently with his front feelers, trying to tell her how sorry he was. Please, Mama, he said at last. Let's get out of here. It's dangerous, honestly. The white choke stuff is safer than this. At least it doesn't drown you. But even as he crackled, some of the white choke came creeping down the tunnels after them. It began to fill the water cave. In case you're interested, the Hoomin on the surface had been pumping smoke down a hole to kill snakes and other things, and it was spreading right through the network of tunnels. But the centipedes didn't know that. Belinda jumped up onto her 42 feet. We can't go back up that tunnel, she said. Let's run alongside the water channel. Maybe there are other tunnels at the other end. But even as she crackled, they felt that smoke was coming stealing towards them from the far darkness at the other end of the cave. It was coming thicker and thicker, spreading itself all around them. It had even reached the bottom of the up-pipe and was beginning to creep upward. Chapter 22. The Living Ladder. George and Harry remembered at the same moment. The earth pile! Quick! Belinda watched puzzled as the 2 senties began frantically pushing and shoving at the loose earth with their heads and front legs. What are you doing? She cried. We must run! We must! But she had to stop because the smoke was getting thicker. And suddenly she understood. No! She crackled as loud as she could. Not that! Not up the up-pipe! I tell you, no! But George and Harry took no notice. They had quite a high pile of earth now. It was nearly tall enough for George to reach the bottom rim of the up-pipe with his front 4 pairs of legs. Not quite, though. Now each time they shoved a bit of earth to the top of the pile to make it higher, it rolled back down. They were not going to make it. Suddenly Harry stopped digging and piling and looked at his mother. Mama, he said, come here, come quickly. Belinda wasn't stupid. She saw what Harry wanted. As the white choke got thicker, it overcame all her other fears. She ran up the side of the earth pile. She stood upright on the top. She easily reached the rim of the up-pipe. She got a good grip on the inside of the pipe with her front 8 pairs of legs. Climb, she said. Her segments were as good as a ladder. The 2 senties ran up her body faster than you could run upstairs. They were inside the up-pipe. Belinda's urgent signal crackled after them. Keep going, hide up there, and come down when it's safe. Don't look back, I'm all right. Okay, and we're going to leave the story there for today. Okay, so I hope that you've enjoyed that part of the story, and we will come back to it next week. Okay, so we'll put some more of the chapters on next week, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I wonder what's going to happen to Harry and George and Belinda in the rest of the story. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.